If the person that you meet who works at whatever location is well equipped and has good information, they feel good at work. Feeling good at work is how you reduce attrition.
Absolutely.
Feeling supported at work is how you reduce attrition. If we're honest, a lot of learning does not reach a learner and become useful. Then we would say, what should we call it? We should call that we share a lot of information. But that is not bad, but it's about being more accurate in what we describe as learning, knowledge transfer, and information sharing. When you look then very critically at the learning industry, the learning arena, and then the tools being deployed, whether virtual, collaborative, or mixed reality, XR, all the rest, why is the learning function still behaving as though we have a didactic classroom into which we'll drag people, beg them to stay, and force them to listen to us tell them stuff?
Right. Hello, hello, and welcome, our dear listeners, to my podcast, Love People Technology Learning. And I'm your host, Tamar Kacharova, CEO of Lanes AI. And today we are thrilled to have with us Phoenix Cavalier, as seasoned expert in immersive learning and performance strategy with over 20 years of experience in learning and development. Phoenix has been at the forefront of integrating cutting edge technologies like AR or VR into organizational learning strategies. Currently, he serves as the manager of support learning and development and UiPath, and is the founder of Verus Learning, where he helps organizations transform training into impactful learning experience. Phoenix, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you with me today. I'm
Tamara,
so
thank
excited.
you. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for making time for me today. Thank you for connecting a little later than we originally planned, and thank you so much. I'm glad to be
Yes,
here.
and I can't believe that's last time I saw you, like 1 year ago in Seattle, and it's like just like pew, like 1 year,
Oh,
and we are here.
it's true. It's true. It's the whole idea of, time flies and all that. It's seemingly more true every year. I don't know if that's everybody, but at the same time, I feel like I get more done. Maybe I'm just
Right.
I'm faster and faster, and it's okay.
Yeah, and in my podcast, always I ask my guests about their career path and about their career journey, uh, because like you have a great career journey, and I wanna share you like with us about this. Like, yes, tell us your story in learning and development.
It's there's a book, I've not read it, but I think it says The Accidental Instructional Designer is the title of this book. Um, but I resonate with that title because I began before it was a career, right? It was kind of training as a side part of HR. It's something that might happen. If you think back 20 plus years, books that were leading to training events were things like Who Moved My Cheese, Fish, How They Play, Make Their Day, a lot of people and culture learning, which was really positive. I inadvertently began learning and development at a call center job where we were dealing with digital subscriber lines, or DSL,
Yeah.
when it was new, which is super wild to think it wasn't a thing. But at the time, I was using PowerPoint. I had gone to New Horizons Learning Center and learned how to use PowerPoint in 1999.
Oh
And
my God.
it was a breakthrough moment. It's like,
Yes,
whoa, the
I remember
future. Yeah,
too.
yeah. It's the context in this moment is it was an attempt to hire job in a call center in Indiana. Then this opportunity to go learn something called PowerPoint happened. But just right before all that, I'm looking in the newspaper for work, and I realized I didn't know what it said, like the skills you needed. No, you need to know Word. I was like, what's Word? You need to know
Hmm.
Excel. I didn't know what Excel. Like
Right.
I'm looking at all of these things, and I don't know any of this. So to you know, remember just how new everything was versus what I might feel like I know today, uh, began really by accident. But I was using PowerPoint, documenting some processes for call center work. We had 4 to 6 different databases, taking calls, managing resellers, installers, a lot of unhappy customers who might have had a bad experience with installation for DSL. Um, and I said to the call center manager after some time, a very, my first negotiation in my career at age 21, um, I can't keep doing work that I'm not paid for, so I need to become a trainer.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
Angela Blevins was the manager, and I remember she said, "Well, you've got us between a real rock and a hard place." And
Yeah.
calm as a cucumber, though inside I was very anxious. Like I'm gonna get fired. They're gonna be mad at me. Um, in this negotiation of some $12 an hour or something like that, I needed to go from 10 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, I looked at her. I said, "I know." Right?
Yes.
Like my best James Bond
Right.
impersonation, like I didn't know what's gonna happen. But I really did feel like the book and the promise of always negotiate is important. I think that's important to do. And it set in motion a lot of great things, especially from the framework of no one can read your mind. So if I don't say something, that's on me. So that's how I became the trainer and with a lot of help and support from people in that orbit.
Yeah. And like, what inspired you to pursue a career in instructional design and technology? And like, I know about your background in cinematography, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And how has your background in digital cinematography influenced your like approach to learning and development? Is it like connect something like?
Oh yeah, big time. Um, I think the accidental piece of the career did mature into purpose, and it is what Verus Learning's tagline is. It's about people, and that's a byproduct of starting in training, seeing the impact that I was having, one learner at a time. A particular story I really, really deeply appreciate is I ran into a former team member at a mall one year, and I think her name was Cynthia, and she had been returning to the workforce, having raised her kids to a point where she could go back to work and do something else along with being a mom and everything else. And she was struggling so much in class. Call center work had a ton of about 300 acronyms. We had all these different data and tools. When she ran into me in the mall, she just gave me such a gift in saying that I had helped her so much because one of her daughters was with her, and so I met her daughter, and but she reflected on we were in class one day, staying after class to go over some systems training. She was really feeling defeated and challenged by this whole new, weird, crazy call center, computer, all this stuff. It was really overwhelming. And I really personally felt like, hey, you have more than enough skill. It's just a practical, it's a stretch, but I really did believe that she had not only a kind heart, a great service talent, her ability to handle customers and so on. And she did really well. She did stay. She did not leave the class. It's a 3 week new hire at that time. So um, her and others like her just cemented for me the best part of the training journey was seeing someone move beyond what they might have perceived as a limiting, say,
Mhm.
temp job or what might seem like, not a big deal. Um, this carried on when I worked at Citigroup doing training. I would invite my new hires on day one to leave.
Mhm.
I would say, everyone, I'm here by choice. And you get to decide if you want to stay in this classroom or if it's not a good idea for you because I commit to giving you 100%. I'm going to ask the same. I'm happy to say my classes at Citigroup, laws and regs training and banking and finance, all graduated and performed really well. I think given the opportunity to take the learning seriously, because I took them seriously, I didn't view their uh, position, socioeconomic stuff like that, like you know, as somehow good, better, best. I'm like, no, every job is a worthy job. I've had so many
Yes.
jobs and I've said yes to work all the time. And learning and development has allowed me to do more than I ever imagined, really, especially when it came to first in the training role, then in writing and design, and then further in this technical space as the career changed over the
Mhm.
decades.
Oh, you mentioned right now, like you've turned like a trainer, like a writing. like instructional designer
Hmm.
and technology, what's your favorite part right now? What's your favorite and like absolutely like the best for you?
I think the thing I speak on, and I've been fortunate to write a little bit about, there's so many great people discussing this topic, but I think it's the idea, and I put it this way: learning and development cannot be the slowest part of someone's day. And that shows up in how technical solutions are applied or not. I think the part that makes me excited is what might have been theoretical 3, 5, or 7 years ago, whether AR, VR, mixed reality, is very real today. Even though not every company is adopting it, some are. And by it, I mean XR in general, some immersive solution. But here's what I think of. My nephew at some point, I watched him say, "Hey, Dad, give me your phone," my brother, and he gets my brother's
Hmm.
phone, sets up the Wi-Fi, connects his tablet, and all this happens. He's like 11. I thought,
Right.
and this is where the maxim I'm about to share was born. I'm already old to somebody. So
Absolutely.
I,
I
I
feel it.
just
I
thought,
feel the same. I feel the same way with my children, 9, 7, and
yeah,
3. And
yeah.
yes, I know. I know what you mean.
It was very liberating to know that no matter how young I feel, at some
Yeah.
point, you think back to when you were a kid and someone in their 20s was like so grown up. But what observing him showed me was that I was around when DSL was new versus my friends and young kids alike. They're growing up with a set of tools that we just didn't have. And so when you look then very critically at the learning industry, the learning arena, and then the tools being deployed, whether virtual, collaborative, or mixed reality, XR, all the rest, why is the learning function still behaving as though we have a didactic classroom into which we'll drag people, beg them to stay, and force them to listen to us tell them stuff? So I think modern solutions are allowing us to address a primary issue. You and I have one of these, possibly a
Yeah.
phone. When we go places, we get answers. When you come to
Yeah.
work and say like, put away your phone, you can't use that.
Right.
And like in a world full of answers, speed, and value that's presented very quickly,
Hmm.
learning, I feel it's not tenable to ask learning to be like, go to, say, an LMS, look for the course, find the file, hope you saw the video, you're never going to watch it again. A long list of things that are not bad, but they
Hmm.
miss the mark on learning in the flow of work, learning that's as fast as real life, and the ability to, and this gets to the bottom line in the corporate scene, which is demonstrate value that is applied in the role. Everyone wants to feel good at work, and
Hmm.
technological solutions can equip people to get answers when they need them versus memorize. It also can allow someone to feel competent and confident in their role, even if they're new. And those are the things that help, I think, turn technical things into people things. Because my view of training, right? I think it's great. Ah, I made training. It doesn't matter. It matters if the user, the learner, the person involved said, this helped me solve a problem. This minimized delay for me. This helped me feel great with that customer. This equipped me to feel very, very smart and informed. All of those things that exist primarily through mobile, which I think it's circa 2013 or whatever, search eclipsed laptop to
Hmm.
mobile by then. So I really am, feeling the passion is to say to any small, medium, large business, like, hey, don't be the slow part. You got to be the
Right.
part that's just as fast. Because even if you look at your hiring demographics, someone coming into your environment is like, why is everything so slow here? Unless you're
Yes.
applying technical solutions deliberately and in ways that are relevant. And
Yeah.
it's not, you know,
Yes. And like today you've mentioned too about like, and you often mention it's your LinkedIn about that learning. It's about people. And right now you started to talk about technology and like, how do you ensure that technology does not overshadow the human element in learning?
I think there's two ways to minimize the risk of what I would consider either buzzword bingo or the trend fatigue of chasing something that might seem cool. One is to be very critical of whatever, say I'm the sales guy and I'm like, hey, you got to buy this thing. It's amazing, right? Maybe it is, but you've got to actually do things like proof of concept or test, right? The potential investment without something like proof of concept, a beta, or a test is almost always misaligned to the user, right?
Hmm.
Because product sales is product sales. I like sales. Sales is great. I like, who
Yeah,
doesn't like going shopping? Let's
me
get some
too.
new stuff, right?
Yeah,
But if you can't connect it to something with evidence, you're already starting in an interesting place. The second part is to find out, is the pursuit of that whatever cool new thing based on a pain point that you've already identified, or is it being narrated based on external forces like trends in, say, VR as an example? I like VR, but there are lots of factors that challenge its utility, whether it's cost, maintenance, deployment, support, hardware, side loading, updates, all of those pieces. When you know that someone might have one of these, compete for the utility of the device. And yet, that very moment is how I kind of fell in love with AR XR, and not to the removal of VR, but to the more focused use cases if you're going to pursue VR. So when you say, is it about people? If you're always asking, who is it helping? How are they
hmm,
benefiting? What's the evidence? Then you can kind of keep sometimes saying to someone, well, we shouldn't do it.
right.
I've often
Yes.
been the guy who's like, I want to do it. It's so cool, but we shouldn't do it. It's
Yes.
sad, but
Yeah, absolutely. And like I love technology like you, like I'm a big
yeah.
fan
I
and
remember that when we were talking in person when we met. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And like sometimes I think I'm thinking a lot about technology, but like I'm about people too. It's like my first part it's about people. And you like I know that you are a great expert in immersive learning and can you share a success story where immersive technology like significantly impacted organizational learning outcomes? Because like right now you mentioned about AR, VR, XR, like different kind of, can you share maybe like really great example from your life experience?
Yeah, the example for me that really stands out, there are interesting cases. First, I'll focus on the environment, which is frontline. So retail as a function, everywhere we go, there's some retail experience that we're having. Um, and so I'll first separate an example, right, with a sort of a funny moment. I went into a place, I'll leave out the brand name. They had put up
Hmm.
a kiosk and you could self-check in. It was very modern. You just would look
Okay.
at this. It was a tablet and it was an iPad and it was put into a very attractive, plastic frame and it sat there. I bring this example up because it's a funny moment where their intent was very valid. Make it
Hmm.
easier for people to check in and minimize lag, wait, or delay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
At the same time, they had divorced the customer experience from any human engagement. And so now this simple check-in didn't have anyone nearby with you. There was a person maybe nodding in general or gesturing like,
Hmm.
go use the tablet.
Yes.
So this is the welcome that you're experiencing. And so I bring that up first to say, okay, deployed state technology may be a great use case or otherwise cost was savvy. It was a good cost. It did not help the customer feel valued even though their intent was, hey, it'll be easier, take you less time. You won't wait in line. No one's writing on paper. Okay, I see why you did this. Somehow that disconnect was stunning because now you're on a list. There's other names. You're looking around. You're wondering who else is in here. Who am I to this list? So I bring that up because the ease of deployment can undermine or sometimes be a disconnect, right? Just put the devices out there or go get the XR or do the thing, right? Put a QR code on the door, it'll help.
Yes.
Without alignment to impact, i.e., strategy or real clear cause effect, all the cool stuff just is more stuff.
Hmm.
And when we look at the learning side, I will say what's exciting is, and this is again in a retail use case, think about when you walk in to say buy a laptop or maybe a phone. You as
Right.
a customer,
Mm-hmm.
you've done research online, right? At home,
Mm-hmm.
you probably looked at stuff or talked to your friends. Maybe there's a brand you already have you want more of. Maybe you're going to try a new brand. You arrive with a ton of data already, right? And yet you might have very interesting questions like, can this do this? Can this do that? Now, you can Google it on your phone, you can search in general, but once you've moved to
Maybe
that
Chat
next
GPT,
layer,
not just Google. Maybe Chat GPT
that's
to talk
true.
to you.
That's true. You can now there's new
Yeah.
all sorts of new ways to ask and get
Yeah.
some better answers. Um, but at the moment that you've gone from broad searching into a fixed environment in retail, and you're like, okay, I've actually left home, I've gotten in my car or whatever, bus, train, etc. I'm going to the place. This is the moment where I find the most valuable example of long-term benefit.
Mm-hmm.
If the person that you meet who works at whatever location is well equipped and has good information, they
Mm-hmm.
feel good at work.
Right.
Feeling good at work is how you reduce attrition. Feeling
Absolutely.
supported at work is how you reduce attrition. Now, in the example with T-Mobile, the outcome was a new hire program, a training program across all stores, nearly 100,000 learners. The deployed state meant an almost paper-free deployment. It meant iPads are deployed in the stores already. They're now having a dual use or a multiple use case scenario. So we've now increased the value of the hardware by giving it more uses per day. We've also made that value for the learner both time efficient and engaging. For the managers, they did not need to print PDFs. They didn't have to arrive as early to a store to do a meeting. And their support content was about one page, four sides, a
Yeah.
fold out. Why? Because the device is already in store, could scan to launch the AR environment. That content then could be shared either individually or within the group work that was being done. So
Mm-hmm.
that ability to say, hey, how do we do a couple of things? Minimize print and demand, reduce the time it takes for the leader to be equipped to
Mm-hmm.
facilitate in class or otherwise live facilitation, provide a solution that allows for individuals and teams to work together as learners, the learning groups and the plan itself, and provide reusable content. Why? Someone didn't attend that day. Someone couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to ask a leader to then what? Go facilitate yesterday from memory? No. They can reuse the content correctly, precisely, and now two people on very different days have a very consistent learning experience. That took a lot of effort and certainly was not a one-man show. Many people were both designers, partners, and the other pieces that I write about a lot are the people I needed to know in the hardware side, the DevOps partners, the deployment partners, the issues of what is the device capable of doing based on memory, RAM, etc. Understanding limits of file size based on download and upload speeds, understanding environmental risks to actually, like, for example, I love video. Usually the bit rate of video is too dense for the use case, and now someone's like, "Oh, that training's broken," but most of it was fine except the video was broken because it
Right.
wasn't there's no bandwidth to support it. So when you think of the speed of that example earlier of walking in, that company put a kiosk. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
You can check yourself
Yeah.
in. Super modern.
Yes, absolutely. And you've mentioned today, like we talked a lot about like different kinds of technology and what we are using for like learning delivery, like how we deliver the content or trainings or something like video, XR, VR. But like it's all about like the canvas of this. It's a learning culture. It means like technologies don't work if you don't have a strong learning culture or like yeah.
Mhm.
And from your experience, what are the key factors that contribute to a strong learning culture within an organization? What do you think about that? And maybe how to build, or how we are like leaders like in learning and development field, like need to think like how to build the learning culture, like strong learning culture in a company.
It's a good question. It certainly isn't, there's not one answer. Um, I'd say there's a positive piece of this puzzle is when you look at the leadership audience for learning, it is required that there's a strong belief that learning is a smart investment, right? Not an expense, right? If we think of a fixed cost like, furniture, of course, you could say there's a write down schedule, eventually you replace it. People are not furniture. And so the investment there is really about saying, do you believe that the hiring effort should continue beyond the hiring event? And this is what I think at Learning Palooza in particular, I said, for every learning professional, we've all made really good content and we've also seen it not get used. We've also seen it maybe get used partially or maybe not be understood. Now, aside from design and development variables, the reason I like the tech component of how we help learning matter and become relevant is, if we're honest, a lot of learning does not reach a learner and become useful. Then we would say, what should we call it? We should call that we share a lot of information, right? But that is not bad, but it's about being more accurate in what we describe as learning, knowledge transfer, and information sharing. If we first get really honest, and that's both at all levels of an organization, but then across those who we're trying to help,
Mm-hmm.
we'll probably find that, you know what? A lot of what we're making isn't learning. A lot of it is
Yeah.
information. And then that's from that volume. So if we said of a book, when you think of a Cliff's Notes or an executive summary,
Yeah.
there's a way to say, well, what's the actionable intel that leads to behavioral change? Okay, let's be better at saying, here's the learning by broad strokes, knowledge that we want to share. Here's the actionable 10%. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
I think technology becomes valuable.
Right.
So I ask you this, do you have any apps on your phone or a smartwatch that remind you of something or help you do something?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of apps,
Yeah.
like I have my calendar scheduling
Hmm.
apps, my like notification in like I have Telegram and I have
Oh yeah.
some notes there, and Telegram will send me the information what I need to think about or something.
Hmm.
Like, of course, I have a great app about my reflection every
Oh,
day.
nice. Nice.
Yes, and it means like a lot of apps, and
Hmm.
you ask me about, yeah,
No, well, the reason I ask is because it's super interesting how learning, right? So if you say there's an industry and there's a career and there's this big thing of learning and
yeah,
development, right? But if you think about it, anything that I'm reading and that I'm trying to make choices about behavioral change, well, we know that spaced learning, reflect in action, the ability to bring some information back, all of those things through modern tools have become easier to produce. And so I think that's where when we say, well, how does learning become better at actually knowledge transfer? Well, one example is, well, how often are you discussing the thing that happened at the event, right? So the cultural piece that you asked about, how do you build a culture of learning? It's a tough one too. I think one of my I was having a conversation I think yesterday about this. The word training is funny because I feel sometimes like, I don't know, training is for your pets. That's not for people, you know? Because it creates a directive statement like, I will train you to do the thing. Sometimes it's true. Say I'm in manufacturing, I need directive training
absolutely,
to not
yeah,
lose my
yes,
hands.
yeah,
This is a
yes,
very much, I will train
absolutely,
you how to do it.
yes, yeah.
Different
It's
from,
why it's why I know how to use garbage disposal at my
yeah,
home.
yeah, yeah,
Like, don't
exactly,
put your
exactly.
hands
Yeah,
in the
there's only
garbage
one way to
disposal.
do this, right? So that kind
Right.
of interesting case of, hey, this is a very one-way street. It's very much A or B. Okay. Like I worked at
Mhm.
UPS a long time ago in the warehouses, and of course, there are a
Yeah.
lot of things you do not do or you will die. So
Oh, yeah.
pretty strong incentive. And therefore, you don't do that. You only do
Yeah.
this. When you look at that from the learning piece, okay, culturally, I think there's still this funny gap. If I'm like, Tamara read that book, I know she knows what to do.
Hmm.
No, that means she read the book. That's not the same as she
Right,
knows
it's
what to do.
absolutely, it's just theory or like something,
Yeah,
and you don't know what I really was impressed on this book and
yeah.
what
We
I'm
could read the
thinking
same
about
book and
it.
do very different things.
Absolutely.
And that's why I brought up this question of the apps, right? So of the event itself, learning, hooray, here's some information. Decision point, what do you do because of the information? Then support, how do I reinforce, remind, or help you recall and apply that information? So there's 100 ways to do that. I mean, if you think about it non-technically, right? We might have had a parent of ours at some point in your life wake you up so you could make it to the bus
Mm-hmm.
because I would sleep through my alarm a lot. So that moment of, well, I know you know how to get up. I know you know why you're getting up. I know you know what you're going to do when you get up, but you didn't get up.
Yes. Right.
So get out of bed. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of, yeah, a lot of thoughts, but I think that's the training. How do you build a culture of learning? You've got to start, I think, at the real level of, do we all use the terms the same way? Are we defining what these objects are in the same way? If I say training, does someone say, oh, I understand that that means this, not that? So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's probably, in my view, the simplest and most oddly hidden part of why is L&D, say, arguing for budget or not being valued or being misunderstood or being perceived A or B? We maybe have never normed on the language we're using to describe what we're trying to do. And I think that is a fascinating, persistent challenge because someone will say, well, Phoenix got training on that. Phoenix might be like, oh no, I did that course. I don't know what you want me to do about it, right? But no one ever asked the learner, what do you know what to do because of this, right? Sometimes it's obvious, fair enough, but in larger organizational questions, it may not be obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe like, and of course, learning culture, yeah, it's something more than just like, yes, you mentioned, just like do training or read the book or like to do something. It's like, I think learning culture right now, it's like a value for all our life, like a like a mission. Right now we live in an era when learning culture, it's our reality. Without that, right now we cannot go like faster, or we cannot do a lot of things because like AI right now do like a lot of things like a humans. And yeah, maybe right now, like I talked to one expert last week about that. That's right now it's a time when people will be more motivated like for learning, because like it's a reality, because like many employees with AI right now in
Yeah.
a market field, like you know what I mean, like
hmm Oh,
yes.
it's a big tidal wave of change, but it also reminds me, there's a book by Kurt Vonnegut called Player Piano,
Uh-huh.
and it is literally about a time where these newfangled pianos were being put in bars
Right.
that didn't require
Mm-hmm.
a pianist, right? So I'm reading
Mm-hmm.
this book. It's super interesting. It's a great book in that it doesn't have a happy ending. It's sort of an unresolved ending. So
Mm-hmm.
it sticks with you a bit more, I think. But what I find, I was thinking about that book in relation to our meeting today, is there's always going to be a player piano. There's always going to be something that can do a thing. I think where I look at organizational development is to say, okay, you still have to have people. Why? Well, because the qualifying engine, it requires discernment based on the ability to contextualize an event in a much broader context. Now, there's really brilliant things happening with ChatGPT and so on, but I would say if a company says, hey, we can finally use AI to do all the things, I'd be very cautious. I'd be like, okay, what things do you think will happen? Right? So, I think there's the fear of that, of it will take away the piano jobs. At the same time, I think this is where AI is exciting. A small company can scale and compete now almost
Absolutely.
aggressively with a large, very well-funded company. And you almost create this wild moment of whose idea is actually better, whose
Mm-hmm.
strategy is actually more relevant. when do we find that kind of meted out? I think AI is going to be equipping some really surprising kind of, if I think of even when starting the company a long time ago, like, man, I probably would have scaled a lot faster because I had to do it all myself.
Ah, yes. Yes, thank you for sharing with these ideas, and like yes, I love it, and the book is really interesting for me too. And like I know that you found Verus Learning, right? Like yeah. What motivated you to found your company, and like what's your favorite part of what are you doing there, and like what kind of project do you love to do in your own company?
I think, the consulting world, when I started originally, my mission was pretty simple. It was just to live where I want and work from home. It was a long
Oh,
time
I
ago.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's my mission too. Copy paste.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And it took about a year and a half for it to happen, right? From the ramp up. And I think when I started, different brand name and so on, I was doing copywriting and branding and web stuff. And
Hmm.
and this is my favorite part because at the time it was like might as well be typewriters because I was charging 25 cents per word. Okay, Tamara, I don't know if you can afford it. It's 25 cents a word. I got to charge, not too
Yeah.
expensive. Some people charge 30, some
Yeah.
people charge 20. I'm right in the middle. But when I started this idea, it was that both writing and design combined with learning and adult learning psychology is to
Hmm.
say, at that point, brand strategy and development, I wanted to equip people to tell better stories. And that's kind of
Hmm.
how video became part of that puzzle as well.
Right.
When you think about what do we like to enjoy, whether it's on a streaming service at home, in a theater, a book by the bed, whatever it is, when we look at storytelling as an art, there's consistent themes. Again, Kurt Vonnegut, but I love
Yeah.
his simple, he describes simple thing. He said, all stories are this: man's walking, man falls in the hole, man gets out. So that's it. And so when you really think about it, he's like, oh, that's true. Every story is essentially you're gonna have to see what happens. How
Yes.
are they gonna get out of this mess? You
Yes.
know? So
Oh my God.
even in your own life, you can reflect on like, oh yeah, no, I've been the character. I was walking and then this happened and I got out of this and they went on. So um, with the kind of challenges of is a brand valid? When you look at learning as a function, we're saying, okay, you build trust through consistent behavior. Well, how do you have consistent behavior? You have to have a set standard, i.e., language, norms, best practices, behaviors, or models that everyone in the company is using. That is then your story. So, both whether in video, online, or in presented materials, if your story is inconsistent, it's hard to build trust with your audience because it starts to feel like, I don't know. Yesterday they sold Chevrolets. Now they're selling
Yeah.
Hondas. I'm not sure about them, you know. So it's that ability to say, okay, well, why do I have to be consistent? A client might ask.
Hmm.
Or why can't I express all of my ideas? Because I'm an entrepreneur and I have a million ideas. And I'm like, I
Right.
know. I used to tell clients, you got to pick one kid's going to college, everyone else has to
Yeah.
wait. And
Yes.
that tough moment of you cannot do all of the ideas,
Hmm.
not at the same time, maybe one in a row. I think
Right.
that for me has become, and I think where the business kind of matured into where it is today. I love solving a problem that's really connected to helping people do better, especially when I think back to, like I shared with Cynthia in the training, my first early training years, someone's life will change. My life changed because of a trainer, more than one. Why? Well, if I had never learned PowerPoint, I probably never would have learned how to tell this story about all these screenshots, numbered steps to complete across 4 systems that then became a big little booklet that then went into a binder that then became helpful. And I saw my team next to me, my peers, just in the call center, feeling less stress, doing better at work, managing that call, minimizing the level of confusion. That's because someone taught me a skill that I could apply. I mean, it's fascinating because it also means, for me as a person at least, a career that I didn't know existed when it all began is so fluid. It's changing all the time. Tech changes. neurological breakthroughs and scientific discoveries, learning and development in terms of organizational psychology, the ability to discover what motivates or demotivates. Like, it's not boring. And there's so much to
Right.
read. There's like a white paper every week. You could find some new bit of information, you know. It's like I lucked into something that does not, it's not static at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not in my view, anyways.
Yes. I love your mission. It's your company, and in your life, it's really brilliant, and we're on the same page.
Thank you.
Like I know it, and I feel it. Like always, when I've
Yeah.
met you first time, it was like special connection, and I know it.
Yeah,
And
me too, with you. I was super inspired by Lane's and your company and just the solution I was exploring. I was like, oh, this is very compelling because, you know, collaboration is the functional glue, right? And
right,
then your solution is like, oh, technology, it's so cool, except when it doesn't work. How about this? Let's
right.
actually put the different, like, I'm really excited because it looks like Lucid or other tools, but in terms of the board sharing and the workspaces, they're
Mm-hmm.
collaborative no matter where you are. Um,
Yeah.
that gets at the whole issue of like my other question I ask a client, like, what year is it? It's
Yeah.
now. We're in the future. It's happening
Yeah.
now, you know?
Like you know, one time, like it was many years ago. Um, I've heard about that's where like it's not a future. If you are talking about something and you know about what you are talking, it means it's a reality. It's not a future because like our brain is working like this. If we created something in our brain and like an idea, it's a reality,
Hmm.
like because we
Hmm.
don't know nothing about the future, but like we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
just like it was like
That's
I've heard
super
it.
cool. It's like metacognition,
Yes,
right? Think
it's
about your
like
thinking.
yeah, it's like it was, I think, in a like big technology summit or something like that, and talks like VP or CEO of the biggest like communication company like in the world, and he told it, and like it was, yes, it was, I think it was maybe 8 or 7 years ago, and he was a man who implemented like a chip to his hand, like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like one of the first like
Yeah.
cheap like in a people's
Yeah,
body, and like
RFIDs or yeah.
yeah, and like and it's true, it's not a future, it's a reality. If we're talking about
Mhm.
this, it's like it's all about like
Yeah.
Apple, Tesla, like
Hmm.
everything, like
It
yeah.
already is now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And like right now I have like some special like personal questions about you, Phoenix, because I'm
Oh,
really
okay.
curious about that. And like, can you share a personal mantra or philosophy that guides you in your personal life? Share with us.
Oh, I have a very favorite one. And it really is, well, there's a short version, but the long version is uh, I don't control the oceans, don't control the sea, but when the winds change, I adjust my sails. I am the captain of my ship. So that is the thing I probably come back to most, right? If change is inevitable, okay, that's fine. The fixed point in all of that, which might be moving, is the ship that you control, and that's really where I live. So it's not because that is always easy, but it also minimizes the scale of what I might be addressing. Because if you look out past that ship, you're like, oh, there's an entire ocean. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot
Yeah.
address that. It doesn't mean it doesn't
Yeah.
exist, you know. The other part of that is something, the second one that's more recently become interesting. Someone, I forget who was asked this question, but I really liked his answer. His response was, because they were like, "Oh, what do you do to stay so healthy or whatever?" And he said, a better question would be to ask me what I don't do." And I've
Mm-hmm.
really become fond of that because in the list we might have bucket list, to-do list, etc. You could have 100 things on that list, but
Mm-hmm.
in the list of what I don't want to do, it's a lot shorter and it's a little bit more like the steering mechanism, you know.
I love this idea. I love it. What
Yeah.
what you don't like to do? Like three like tell us
Mhm.
three things what you don't like to do in your life.
Let's see. Things I don't like to do. Well, this is like because lately I've been focusing on just personal wellness. So more or less alcohol, nah, no big deal. No thanks. It's like low to no, it's fine,
I
but
know.
it's
I
not
know.
worth it's just it's like too expensive physically. The other one would be, I'd say I like a movie. I'm not so much, I like to like sort of forget about a show and then come back and there's 3 episodes. Like I like to sort of let them stack up, like, you know,
You don't
and
like
then
to
I'm like,
spend time for
ooh,
the series, right? Yes.
no, no.
Show or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'd say the only other thing I think of as far as what I would say my away from motivation, right, is
Hmm.
I don't like to be judgmental, so I'm not.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
it's
I
it's
love
something that
it.
I really um and that's based on feedback from friends over the years. They're like, oh, so I've come to understand like I thought everyone was also this way or this way,
Yeah.
but then I really like to sort of accept things as they are, where they are, what they are, and that's that. So,
Yes. Oh
um,
my God. Yes. It's like
yeah.
the same for me. And like in the end of my list, I don't like to do something which I really don't like to do. What do you know what it means? It means if I don't like to do something, me like entrepreneur, I will find I'm looking for the person who is
Mhm.
doing this job the best way and it's their
Oh,
favorite,
that's a
but it's
very
not mine.
effective
It's
skill.
why,
Yeah.
like, because I know myself. If I
Hmm.
like, and I'm a woman, it means like women, we are in a different energy. Like if we
Hmm.
love to do something, like it's like a sun, like an energy, it's
Yeah.
like a little different.
Yeah.
And I know that's when I work hard in a field which I really love and have a passion, it's
Hmm.
like the best result. But if I'm not happy on my job,
Yeah.
like I want to find the person who loves to do this part of the
Hmm.
job, and like yes, I know that it will be the best result. It's like
It's
it's so
very
healthy
it's
for me,
very
it's so
savvy.
healthy
Yeah.
for me. Yeah,
I love that. It's sort of about, I think too, you're capturing this ability to say where your time goes is very important. And
absolutely.
knowing that that is something that you actually can direct rather than sort of react. I think the more often I think anyone can say, I'm not, I don't do that.
Yes,
This
yeah,
person's
yeah,
great
it's
at it.
true.
I'm going to work with them. Yeah.
It's true. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Like a hobby or something like you like,
Oh, it's
yeah.
pretty much, I love cars and I
Cars,
always have.
yes.
Mhm.
Tell
Yeah.
us a little about your cars and how much,
Uh,
how many
you
cars
know,
do you have?
well, I have owned 100 cars since I was 16,
Oh my
and
God.
that has been the oldest is a 1980 Fiat Spider, but
Wow.
I love cars and I can't not love them. But I recently sold some cars. I sold a Peugeot and I'm selling an old Rover and trying to like reduce my time management into some other things.
Yeah.
But between cars is my main hobby. I like to kind of rescue cars that are going to be neglected, and I try to rescue them and I restore them a little bit. I'm not an expert restorer, example, but
Uh-huh.
I'll go up to my limit. I can work on cars, and then if I can't do that, I'll get help. But then um, cars, and then trying to stay healthy and fitness is mainly where my time goes. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think about this from I want to be a really strong old man. So I
Okay.
think, I'm on a 5-year goal right now. I'm about halfway through a 5-year goal, but then I think about, when I'm really old, I really admire. I was in Positano, Italy, and there's a woman
Mm-hmm.
going up the stairs from pretty much down by the seashore,
Yeah.
up a very steep flight of stairs. I'm behind this woman. She's carrying whatever she's gotten from the market,
Yeah.
vegetables, fruit, all these things. A good probably 30 pounds of stuff. She
Uh-huh.
was so strong, and I just was immediately mesmerized because I realized what's the functional statement. My dad would say, use it or lose it, but
Yeah.
I'm watching this woman proceed up this very steep little stairs, and it wasn't that it was hard for me to do. I was more compelled by the ease with which she was going up these stairs. Obviously, over time and as part of her life, it was just part of the
Yeah.
day.
Every day. Can you imagine? Like, yeah.
hmm And I just thought, I want to be as strong as that lady when I'm like later on. So I'm really just, there's so much to learn about personal wellness, but also just
Yeah.
examples around you or some unexpected example of like, look at this lady, she's so strong. I see all these groceries, she's walking up the stairs. I'm trying to keep up with her. I just thought this woman's amazing. So that has I've come back to that image of just like I felt at that moment like I don't know if I'm on track to be as strong as that lady when I'm an old man.
Yes.
So that's kind of my hobby in general is just to see what I can do while I can do it.
Yes. Great, great. I love it. And like honestly for me, well, health is really important too, because one day my second son, he's 7 years old right now, Rodion, he asked me, Mommy, when are you going to die?
Kids.
I answered, Rodion, I wanna live not wanna, like I know that I will be young till 120.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was impressed, and
Yeah,
he asked me, really?
yeah,
i
yeah,
I answered, yes, for sure,
yeah,
because like
yeah.
I do sport. I
hmm
have like great ideas in my mind. I'm really
Yeah,
kind person. I try to
yeah.
do all the stuff like so good for people, and
hmm
like it's my life, and like I love healthy food, and I love
Yeah.
great dreams. Like, yes, I love to sleep.
Yeah,
Like,
sleep is
you
important.
know what I mean.
Oh yeah, sleep is a real
Yes,
friend.
yes, I have fun. Like, I feel this life so good. It means like I'm going and I should live till 120. And like,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely. And I
Yeah,
love my life, and I think people who love life like me, like a big passion, like I
yeah,
think we should live like till 120, 130. And like, right
yeah.
now medicine and everything stuff like
hmm
is developing with technology and will help
Oh
us to
yeah,
support our body and like our health. Yes,
yeah.
but we
I
need to
think
save ourselves right now without
yeah.
alcohol, with a great sports, or like some passion like
hmm
this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in any way, right, that you can keep going. My dad's 86 and he's really pretty spry and taking care of the lawn and the trees in the yard and so on. So I am definitely appreciating his example in that. And the idea that, yeah, it's even say I'll get injured or something, for whatever reason, and I'll like, okay, I have a little bit of time, I'll be injured, and then I'm gonna still move through this awkward phase because I want to tell my body, okay, you have 5 minutes, that's enough. Let's keep it going. You know, um, Not without awareness of if it's serious, but just the idea that like, you know, I'm gonna keep going as long as I keep going, and that's gonna be a long time. So let's go ahead.
Yes. And like in the end of my podcast, I have three questions for every guest, and
Sure.
they're the same. What was the last thing you asked ChatGPT or Claude, or I don't know, like
Yeah.
Gemini? Yeah.
Oh, I was loading some content to ask it to synthesize it into an outline. So trying to
Yes.
test out, how
Different
is
kind of.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the ingestion volume, again, that scale, could this volume be read in, and what's the output equal to? I think as we look at, I've come to say, okay, prompt engineering is the new Google search, right? So
Yeah.
when you remember you have an old job ad might have said, are you good at internet? Like,
Yes.
do you know how
Yes.
to search the World Wide Web? So now I think the question is, I ask myself, I'm not so much good at prompt engineering. I that's clearly a skill I'll have to develop. So I'm just been playing with that.
Yeah. Okay. Tell your favorite quatrain or lyrics and explain why exactly you choose it and you love it.
Um, it's a question that's interesting musically. It's the song that came to mind really isn't. It's Everything But the Girl, an old song. Um, and it's the lyric is, "If you lose your faith, babe, you can have mine." And
I love it.
it's a
Oh my
very
God.
It's a wonderful song. It's very melodic. And a friend of mine over the years, she and I would often be on different coasts at different
Hmm.
times. And I remember we would kind of share that song back and forth when I was in my 20s or 30s. It was just like
Yeah.
when stuff was really rough, the idea that you could borrow someone else's faith if you needed it. I just think
Right.
it really felt like such a gift. And I remember a few times the either of us being really supported by just that note, like either a text or send a little
Yeah.
bit of a snippet of that song. So it's Everything But the Girl. The album is Temperamental Heart, I think. It's back from like 1998 or something.
8. Yeah. And last one, it's called Ask the Next Guest. Here's how it goes. Every guest gets to throw a question at the next guest. I believe it adds a unique touch, allowing the previous guest to pose a question to the next one. Kirsten Austin was my wonderful guest, and she
Okay.
passed on her question to you. Are you ready to
Okay.
answer?
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes.
I would like to know how do you as a learning and development leader um, create an environment where people can be fully human?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, my intent, and I think the practical version of this is we came up with a thing years back, my boss and I actually, which is we got to make an ugly baby.
Yeah,
So this
absolutely.
point was getting teams to feel free to make something terrible. And that was liberating on so many levels. And in particular, a professional I used to work with who was sort of least inclined to want to do agile things or this sort of rapid prototyping. I remember her response to that was so joyful to feel really liberated to just, it didn't have to be good or perfect or great at all. And I think I've really found that permission to don't make it doesn't have to be anything. If this is the idea you have, get it out there. Because sometimes the weirdest idea is the best one, the most effective one. And I think for myself, it's sort of away from perfectionism into just productivity and actual momentum. Um, I think I've just seen it let people feel free to create and not think that like, oh, they're gonna judge my work. It's not so fancy. Everyone else is different. It's better work. No.
Yeah.
So the ugly baby does get to be an awkward teenager, and then you get an adult. So
Yes.
this little arc kind of it helped turn agile methodology into something kind of hilarious. We're like, because we were rapid development, we're like, all right, time to show your ugly babies. And so we would all laugh. We're like,
Oh,
okay, I'm really
yes.
shy. I'm going to share it. It's terrible. But often those ugly babies were just so great. It was just like, um, you know, making it really
Yes.
clear. Don't worry about it so much. Like, just get going, and you're going to
Yeah,
find out
yes.
that you're going to do great anyways.
Yes.
So,
Thank you for this answer. And it's your turn to ask
okay.
my next guest.
My question for your next guest would be, um, when do you recall a complete failure of technology, and how did you overcome it? So I'm thinking of those times and you're like, that did not go as planned.
Yes.
But and maybe what happened next? Kind of the cliffhanger, and then what?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, Phoenix, I will ask my next guest, and we've
Yeah.
done.
Oh, we are done. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. And like,
Thank
really,
you,
I
Tamara.
appreciate Phoenix for sharing your like a valuable insight and experiences with me today. And
Thank you
thank
for
you for
sharing time with
coming.
me.
Yes, and it's really it's been a pleasure like exploring like the everything what happens in your life and about technology and about people, about your mantras and like everything what happened with you. Yes, thank you for sharing. And to our listeners, join us next Tuesday for another enlightening conversation on Love People Technology Learning podcast. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And until then, keep learning and stay curious. Bye.